Shut up, my show's on.
Just started talking.
Every year, thousands of new motion pictures are made. But even today, with myriad streaming, cable, and internet sources, the average viewer can only hope to be aware of a fraction of those titles. Each Obscurity report brings you a title that we believe deserves a far wider audience.
Welcome back to Visited by Voices Obscurity Report, our special Darr at the Mall edition. I'm joined today, as usual, by my co-host, Sam.
Pina colada.
I could have bet money.
Sorry.
I'm also joined by B-Movie Mike.
Hey, what's up?
I don't know. Tell me.
Oh, the moon here pretty soon.
Awesome.
And all the fun things that scurry about when that occurs.
Well, get the bonfire rolling and get the dancing started. We're also joined by horror gal Susan.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be really fun. I know it. I feel it right now. And I haven't even had any alcohol, so it's going to be a good time.
Well, everyone should have brought a pina colada. Did you not watch the movie?
I
Time.
Dan Shine from Flesh Wound Features.
Hey, how's it going? I'm already disappointed that you didn't license that song, Lauren. You got to up the production value.
Well, hopefully we can just all do a sing-along. That would be transformative in nature later.
It's called karaoke.
Yeah.
Say it.
Karaoke. Christian Hannah Horror.
How y'all doing?
Is that your New York?
It's my New York accent.
Can you do a Jersey?
I can do a Governor Christie.
Oh, awesome.
He's got kind of got a lisp, right? I can't do a Governor Christie.
No, you promised you'd do a Governor Chris Christie. I want to hear it.
We'll come back to it. Let me. I gotta get my mind right.
Well, maybe you should do a Murphy. All you have to do is look very confused and look kind of like a fish dying on a pier.
That's not hard for me. That's not hard for me.
Not at all. Stone Gassman.
What's up, everybody?
Is somebody in a wind tunnel?
Stone is in a wind tunnel.
was in front of the AC.
Okay. Can everybody hear me now?
Yeah.
Yay!
Okay. We'll leave it at that.
That's staying in the video.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Also, Mr. Broombastic, Jonathan Lundy.
How are we tonight, folks?
Are you going to bring us down tonight? Is that your goal?
I got a feeling like as I was watching, I'm like, I bet they all love it. I bet I'm gonna be the guy. Like it's gonna be me.
I'm sure the comments will support you. So don't worry. And finally, last but never least, except in the order they show up for the stream, Mr. J, the Stingray, off his fresh watch of Darr at the Mall.
What's up, guys? Glad to be here.
So, when I approached you guys about Darr at the Mall with this weird title and certainly film probably you didn't have any radar contact with earlier, what did y'all think? What were your expectations before you saw a frame of film?
I thought zombies for some reason, probably because I'm so used to, things like Dawn of the Dead, and well, shit, that's probably the only mall movie I can think of off the top of my head. So, I liked it. It was refreshing.
Anyone
I
else?
thought it was either going to be zombies or little robots.
Oh,
I was thinking chopping mall.
robots.
I'm right there with you, Christian. I was
Chopping
thinking chopping
mall.
mall.
Sorry.
There's chopping mall vibes, and we'll get there.
I thought
I
it
was-
was going to be like that as well. I thought it was going to be more like a Dawn of the Dead type movie also.
I did too, but knowing Lauren and his lust for weird shit,
For the Indian.
especially weird indie overseas shit, I really didn't know what to expect, but I knew it was going to be interesting. And I was right. It was pretty
That's
interesting.
kind of where I was too. Like, Lauren's recommending this, so it's
Okay,
gonna be a wild
it's
ride.
almost like he likes to toy with your mind like a cat with a mouse. It's like they're going to think it's a zombie flick in a mall, but it's going to be a mind fuck of a whole nother order. So I didn't know what to expect. I just went in to just push play and say, all right, throw me, let's go.
I knew it wasn't a zombie flick. I knew something about it, but I hadn't seen it, so I was pleasantly surprised.
I wish I could say I have a long history with this movie, but that would be an absolute lie. The channel is really cool because once you start to communicate with a part of the fandom that you didn't have any connection with before, it kind of does give you the ability to hear very different points of view from people all the way across the world. And I was chatting on Twitter with one of the viewers of this show, who I hope is watching. Obviously, we're not live, but I hope he's watching and get a comment below. But he was very impressed that any stateside YouTuber was covering Indian horror, because horror is really huge in India, but it has no export value to America. It does very well in other parts of the world. In Japan, it's like a constant market. And most of Southeast Asia as well, Russia a little bit, but America, they can't seem to get out of the Indian American population is in North America. And in the course of talking to him about some films that I regularly cheerlead, he said, "Well, have you seen Darr at the Mall? It's this kooky little film, but I love it a lot." And I was like, "No." So I went on a little bit of a tirade to find a copy. And I did actually find a DVD copy, which is a rarity these days. And I don't usually watch things as soon as they come in. They usually sit around for a week or so, and then I get around to it because there's always a lot backlog. I very quickly fell in love with what I was watching with this movie. It's a thing. It's definitely a thing. So, some of you watched it on YouTube. Some of you, I think, rented it. Some of you watched a probably variably legal copy of it.
Exceptionally legal. It was extra legal.
I got the Xbox edition.
Yes.
Yes.
I paid money for it, so it better have been legal.
So take us through. Let's give your big thoughts, your 50,000 feet remarks on the film. Let's start with Jay and go around the clock. Skipping Jonathan will make him last.
I feel like it definitely could have been trimmed down a little bit. It was a pretty long runtime for, I thought, the story it was trying to tell. Third act was my favorite part. I think it really did come together nicely there. I was kind of iffy until that point, but yeah, they really could have trimmed out some of the opening stuff. Like, man, they were really concerned about telling you about this mall, man.
It's kind of like Shin Godzilla with the boardrooms, huh?
Oh god.
Stone.
Yes, I really enjoyed it. Here again, like Jay said, I think it could have been trimmed a little bit. I really enjoyed a lot of the stuff in the mall. I especially loved there were no jump scares. I liked how the lighting would bring out certain people's eyes in certain scenes, like the little girl in the beginning. I love the entire sequence where he's searching through mannequins with the flashlight. That was all good stuff. And then you get that Pina Colada musical number after so much, so much buildup of horror. And it's like, it's almost as if the filmmakers were distracted by something going on next door in a club or something. They thought, whatever, let's just go over and just shoot this and just throw it in the movie, just to build it up. But it kept my attention. I mean, it definitely kept my attention. And, I was wondering who was going to live and who was going to die, and who. I thought Darr was actually going to be the name of the protagonist, but actually in India it
Right.
means fear. Fear at the mall. I don't necessarily understand why they had to use the ampan sign, or I know I screwed that up in the title. Maybe somebody could explain that to me, but I overall enjoyed it. I'd give it a solid 4.5 out of 5. Absolutely enjoyed it, and I want a DVD copy now. So legal.
We'll talk. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Susan.
Well, I agree that I do think it could have been trimmed down some, that the highlight was definitely the third act. But personally, I was very happy about that, because there's nothing I hate more than when you're invested in a movie and then the third act is like somebody had to leave early and they just write it off, you know? So I did appreciate that about it. And, you know, again, in the beginning, I just felt like it was a little slow. It's like, okay, I get it. I've seen a horror movie before. I know what's going on in this mall. But you know, kind of like Stone said, the way they did certain things, like with the mannequins and whatnot, it just kind of, it was just kind of refreshing the way they did it. I know that sounds kind of, you know, professional movie reviewer here, but I really also liked that there were some like cultural differences that you picked up in certain aspects, like I forget the character's name. The lion boyfriend situation or whatever. There was some dynamic there between the characters about that situation that I was like, wow, this is a glimpse at, you know, what is their culture for that type of scenario and that kind of thing. So I enjoyed that. I thought there was a little bit too much CGI. That's just me. I'm always probably gonna say that if there's a ton of moderately iffy CGI, but overall, I love cheesy B movies and I love good horror. And I feel like this kind of smashed the two together. It was kind of like a mashup for me. So I really liked it. I thought it was good. And again, like it was one that after it was over, I immediately thought, you know what, even though I called the air vent and I called one of the, you know, twists or not really a twist, but even with that, I still kind of wanted to rewatch. So I enjoyed it. Even with the cheesy pina colada, I mean, during the watching of it, I kind of thought the same thing, like, wait, what's happening here? How is this relevant? And then I let go of that and I'm like, this is just here and we're just going to go with it. So, you know, so I did like it.
I will say that the CGI in the film is iffy, but it still looks better than that zombie tiger in Army of the Dead. Dan, 50,000 feet.
So I absolutely love this film. I will say first and foremost, there's a lot of familiar horror tropes here. This isn't going to win an award for originality. I actually think that might make it a little more accessible, though, for people because, you know, it is a very by the numbers ghost story in a way. Yet, I'll tell you right now, way better than Conjuring 3. Way more entertaining, more tension. Yeah, I've seen it before in a way, but it didn't matter. It told the tale well, and it put a smile on my face from all the the homages they did, Amity Mall and all that good stuff. It really evokes the spirit of those great Ramsey brothers Indian horror films of the 70s and 80s. I don't know if it's going to blow your mind, this one, but I'll be honest. Like, if Piz were on tonight, I think he'd like this more than Zombie Ready. I don't know. There's something about this one that I think could cross over very well if people watch it. And Lauren, I will say to your point earlier, I could not find a single review, either written or video, from outside of India on this film, which is there could exist, but I sure didn't find anything. And this is a popular film. I mean, there was a video game adaptation. I mean, my one big beef with this, and I won't give anything away, was the kind of convenient memory issue with a certain character. But all all things together, I love this movie. I thought it was entertaining as hell.
Christian.
Yeah, I thought it was a good movie. One thing I like about these Indian films that I'm noticing, you look at American-made movies, a lot of times the color palettes are brighter, right?
Mhm.
You got your yellows and reds and whatever. These Indian films, they use brown, dark brown, dark black, and then darker black. And like it's so non-Hollywood and it looks really good in a dark room when you watch it. Um, I thought it was a good movie. I like Indian nightlife. It looks really fun. I actually really like Jimmy Sheargill. I didn't think he overacted at all. I thought he was really cool. And this movie actually did something that it brought so many high school memories to me. In the soundtrack or the score, I heard timpani drums, and I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I haven't heard timpani drums in a score in a long time. And in high school, in symphonic band, that's what I played. And they're just these big drums that you tune to notes. And I was like, oh my God, timpani drums in the score. This is so punk rock to me. I thought it was a good movie. I really liked it. It's certainly my favorite Indian mall-based horror film.
Well, stick with us. That seems like a challenge.
Yeah.
Sam.
This movie has everything. Dead orphans, BDSM musical number. Obviously, it takes place in a mall. I know we just covered that. I do kind of want to bounce off of where Christian was going, though, with the score. Because the score is suitably creepy, and it feels right for the atmosphere. It doesn't feel like it's it may or may not be telegraphing any jump scares. You guys could probably give me more of your opinions on that, but I thought it worked out really well, and I love the way it was shot for sure. But Dan is totally right. This is an easily adaptable movie for American audiences. You're just gonna have to trim off maybe half an hour, but it's the same formula that audiences are used to here. You've got ghost story, and then figure out the ghost story, and then the resolution. And it totally works for me. It actually brought a ton of nostalgia back. Like, I know the CG's kind of rough, but the parts where you've got the wispy ghosts, that reminded me a lot of Dark Castle's House on Haunted Hill. Like when the darkness finally comes out of the walls, and it's very CG, but it's also very gothic and beautiful. So I got that tone off of it. Oh God. I do have to point out, I mean, I was confused by some of the ghosts, because they look like the angels in the Bible, how they're written, where it's just like a bunch of shapes and maybe an eye here or there. I was like, what am I looking at? Is that a ghost?
It's ghost dust.
And it's just like a bunch of shapes. And then they'll look like people in other scenes. So
B-movie Mike.
Well, I do agree with everybody that said that it could be trimmed a bit. It did seem a little long. As far as the musical number, it's a film from India. You got to expect a musical number out of nowhere. It's just like, boom. They love that stuff. Hey, it's like you expect it. So that didn't bother me. I was like, oh, there it is. Okay, cool. Now they got that over with. Let's get back to the movie. I did like the lead. Most of the actors did a great job. I did like the nods to Amity Mall. And there was a few Romero-isms in there about consumerism and, how that's robbing us of our ability to, it's just robbing us of our humanity, because we're more interested in the Gucci and all that stuff than we are being good people and worried about each other's well-being. So, that was a very, Romero-esque kind of theme with the mall. No zombies though, which was it was cool. I wasn't disappointed. The CGI didn't really bother me that bad. I thought it was appropriate for the story. I liked the lighting. I liked the cinematography for some of the scenes. I thought and some of the scenes were very well shot and put together and blocked out. The story, although I did enjoy it overall, I kind of felt like it could use a little tightening up as far as where they put certain information, because it could be a very American film, but the formula is an evil happens in the past, and then we map it out from there. We go to the past and see what happened, and then we go to the future or to the present, and then we find out who is responsible and ultimately why it happened before it resolves. This is kind of like all over the place narratively. I kind of felt just when I was watching it. It's a common. I don't want to give too much away, so I'm going to try and dance around what it is, but it's kind of a common theme as far as greed, creating evil, and and of course causing revenge, ultimately. So very familiar themes, great lead. The convenient amnesia did bother me. The big twist at the end, it was kind of like, really?
Mm-hmm.
With a situation like that, I mean, I don't know. It just so happens that, well, we at the beginning when the security guard's calling, obviously the guy that owns the mall, or one of the co-owners of the mall, and he's requesting a specific person be hired. We find out why he's making that request and who's ultimately requesting that person, even though that person apparently has amnesia and doesn't understand what had happened in that location. And the clues that this person is finding is related to the end. And I don't want to go too much into it, but it was just kind of, it's like, that was kind of weird to me. Not that I didn't like it, because overall I enjoyed the film. I'm glad I watched it, and I'll definitely watch it again. It was very entertaining. But I did, thematically and with the narrative, I had a few issues with how it was put together and how things were revealed, and how it required, I don't know, just not just a suspension of disbelief, but just kind of like, okay, I'm not going to let that bother me. Even though that really bothers me, I'm not going to let that bother me, because the rest of it's good, But that really, the twist did kind of bother me a little bit, as far as what we saw going through the film. It's like we shouldn't have been the only ones in on it, but I don't know. I liked the resolution. I thought the third act was strong, although I did enjoy the film all the way through. I liked the I don't know, just the relationships between the security guards and the owners and the kids and the girlfriends and the rich kid and the other kid who was rich but didn't act rich, and they were both interested in the same girl, but one was like an alpha and one was like a beta, and you know what I mean? It was like one was the nice guy, one was the rich asshole, and then you got Pop Star and song, and what was the name of that song?
Pina Colada.
Oh yeah, Pina Colada. I know. I'm surprised I forgot that, but thankfully it was the only real stop hammer time moment in the film. Thankfully. But overall, I didn't like it as much as Zombie Ready. I didn't think it was as creative or as crazy. I thought it was really tame, almost like what. It's almost like an Indian filmmaker's version of what an American film would be. Mm-hmm. It's like they take our tropes and our narratives and kind of like do what they think we would do in a way. And they almost succeeded, but they still kept it true enough to their form of doing things that it made it interesting, and not just like, oh, that's just a retread of something we do badly anyway. So I enjoyed it, and I'm really happy that I saw it, and I definitely watch it again.
I think the plot twist might actually have, we might be missing some context. It seems to have some mythological undertones. I'm sorry, religious undertones.
My ignorance of the Indian culture could really make me miss out on a lot of subtlety. Because they are, I've noticed that from what I've seen, there's a lot of spiritual undertones to everything in their movies. There's a lot of callbacks to, spirituality being more important than, what humans are normally entertained by. And it's the spirituality that binds us together. And when we get off track and get lost in greed and corporatism, that's the evil that takes us away from our true relationship type of thing. But again, I'm very ignorant of Indian culture, so some of that stuff escapes me.
The extent of my knowledge is through White Lady Yoga, so you're gonna have to be careful.
Well, they're ancestral ties, I think, too. Like in the third act, without, I don't know, we're not spoiling it, right? Because people should see it. But culturally, they're ancestral ties that, you know, you bear a responsibility for your ancestors and what they have done. That is viewed, you know, in a different way than what American culture would normally connotate.
I think most Americans wouldn't think of India being in Asia. Right? I mean, that really,
You're right.
I'm sure there's a large portion of people that wouldn't really put those two together. I mean,
it's in Europe.
Yeah, right.
Chinese are in Asia, not the Indians.
You know, so in Asian culture, especially Japanese culture, has a lot of that. Where if you do something to dishonor your family, you've not just dishonored yourself, you've dishonored your parents, your grandparents. They're in all the way back. And so, yeah, in Asia, in Asian culture, there's definitely, you know, if you've done something, then your entire family is punished for it, for your actions. And that's definitely a thing in the movie.
Ancestor worship is very much part of every religion that exists in India. People may be Hindi, for instance, but they have a strong ancestral worship background. I will just note that you know, the main character's name, at least initially, is Vishnu.
God damn it! I was gonna say that more, you motherfucker! I was getting to that.
Well, then you should have said it, shouldn't you have?
Is that like John Doe over there? There's like just
no, it's the god of war and
right, but I mean, is it like a really popular name? I mean,
no.
Vishnu is the god of preservation.
Well, there's a duality there.
It's actually a triumvirate. I'm just going to say that with Brahma and Shiva. And we see Shiva name dropped in the movie when Caden is stuck in, I guess it's a closet, being chased by those ghosts, and they're all shouting Om Nava Shiva, and which is just salutations to the auspicious one, or adoration to Lord Shiva. I didn't catch any name dropping of Brahman. Did anybody else?
No.
Okay, well.
Considering it was another.
Sorry.
Considering it was another read-along adventure, I get kind of lost as to whose sentence belongs to what character.
Right.
There's when there's multiple characters shouting on screen, and I'm just reading the text. I don't necessarily I may not put the right sentence with the right character. So that scene, especially when you have so many voices shouting, and it's basically the same thing, and he's shouting. I don't know if he's praying, or if the ghosts are just, you know, yelling or groaning or what's going on. So that's a little confusing to my.
That's why this is not going to play for a Western audience, because they're not reading subtitles. Sorry,
it didn't bother me. I mean, dubs destroy the audio quality of the original intent. I completely understand that. So if you want the full effect, you have to watch it with subtitles. But it can be confusing if you don't understand the language of the culture.
So I think it's time for us to lose a friend. Jonathan, give us your take.
Yeah, so maybe I misunderstood the assignment or something. Like what I watched was Indian diet conjuring with a pina colada dance number. Like that's what I saw. And and maybe it was my headspace going in. Lauren's like, hey, we're gonna watch this. I'm like, oh, so this must be like a really good, well written, really scary movie. And I didn't get that, so I kind of checked out for a little bit. I'll give you some of my highlights, okay? The score is the shit. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on these things or not. I hope so. Yeah, the score's the shit.
She just said MFer, so
Sam made it acceptable, right? I noticed that.
I'm on the show. You're fine.
I really did enjoy. I really enjoyed the score.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. I thought it was great.
It's like a dark synth wave.
I dug it, and I was surprised at how Western the movie looked, and in some ways felt like it. Mike hit the nail on the head. It was like they tried to make a Western horror movie the way they thought we would make it, right? So I dug that. Everything else, I'm just confused. And I'm shocked. Like this does not hit me as a movie that like you would like, Lauren. This like you specifically. I cannot put a
We'll
finger
get to my
on,
feelings in a second.
on shit that you like. Like I
Because
feel like
it's-
you punked us. I feel like you punked us.
Not at all.
This because
Not
Zombie
at
Ready.
all.
Now, bear in mind, I was on a lot of pain medication when I watched Zombie Ready. But that movie was fun. Like I dug that. This one was really fucking boring.
You didn't find more tension in this though
Yeah,
than
it was
most.
tense.
Yeah, like most recent American movies
Not
that are
really.
similar.
Not
Really?
really. I would argue things like Insidious Chapter 2 have more tension than this.
Ugh.
I don't know.
I can't get on that board.
That's his
What?
opinion. That's his opinion.
What 1995 Hewlett Packard did they render the CGI on with this?
I second that on the CGI.
That's my biggest complaint. That's my
See,
biggest-
Like it was like they
The
just
eyes?
lit a smoke bomb underneath the camera. Like, no, that's a fucking ghost right there. Is what that is.
Bad CGI is so punk rock, and I will live and die by it.
No, there's also good bad CGI. This was not an example of that either. Anyways, yeah, I'm confused more than anything. It was okay. Like
Well, I'll see if there's a Kentucky edit of the film for you. I think that might help. So I'll tell you why I love the movie. It's not a big surprise if I suggested you all watch it that I love the movie.
Yeah.
So I really love the pre-J horror explosion Hong Kong scene. It wasn't just in Hong Kong. It was in Thailand. It was in Taiwan. There was an explosion of horror that was under the covers, and there were no big hits. But there was a steady stream of these things that would get imported in America and would show up at this little shop that I used to go to that sold mostly comic books. I didn't go there for comic books. I went there because they had an import DVD section. DVDs, some VCDs. And films like Ghost Train would come out, and I would just devour it. And those films had an honesty and a purity to them, even when they were completely interchangeable. There's a number of those titles that I cannot tell you. I could watch a scene and not be able to identify which film it comes from. No question about it. But there was an honesty to the filmmaking and the storytelling and an earnestness that we've really lost. I mean, if you look at the last few months of American cinema in America that's come out in theaters, I just, if you like those films, great. For me, they're just as generic and as plotting. And when they think they're edgy in a safe way, which is not what edge should be. So I would rather have formula, programmers available to me. Like we used to go to a video store and rent just something that was direct to video, and you knew you weren't getting great shakes, but it was fun for that night. It's kind of what this movie is, and I miss that. I like the fact that the film just wanted to be as good as it could be for the budget, time, and energy available. And I will tell you the one thing about Indian cinema that doesn't get nearly enough credit is that they pour over every frame with their intent. So the film's too long? Yeah, of course it's too long. I would say, it's funny because Zombie Ready is a much longer film, but doesn't feel it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that when you actually had to make that half-hour, 20-minute cut that everyone is, suggesting, it would be a really hard thing to do when you actually sit down, because there's very little in the film that isn't good. And in the 50,000 viewpoint, I just want to say, I miss the days of the really good, low-profile horror film. We don't have it anymore. Either it's like ultra low budget stuff that slinks onto Shudder, and we talk about as if it's great for 2 weeks and then no one ever mentions again. Or it comes out in theaters, everyone pretends it's great, but it's just really glossy schlock that the studios would really prefer to just get rid of the monsters and just have it be a romantic comedy anyway, because that's what the fucking movie looks like. So that's why I'm in love with this. And is that my version of nostalgia for 80s schlock that other people have? Maybe it is. But it's where it's where my warm and fuzzies come from.
I also crave mediocrity. I mean that as a good thing. No, I mean I do get the warm fuzzies from this.
Mhm.
You know, I know that we keep talking about the musical number, but one of the things that got me was how much it sounds like 2011. That song is 2011 personified. And the thing is, back then, like, I was working in a mall, and I was obsessed with my playlist on my iPod, and because I would go and work out in the mornings, and then I'd go to work, and my gym was right across from the mall. So I was either at the gym or I was at work, and you know, so it was just it was just always conflating those two things, like songs at the mall, songs at the mall. And so when I hear that same tune and I see the mall setting, it's just, I feel like I've time traveled 10 years back. And it's a great feeling because that was probably one of the happiest times in my life, even though I was pretty broke, and we didn't have very good air conditioning in the apartment that I was at. And it was summer in Texas.
Oh,
But yeah. It just, brought me back to like a time when it was just like the pursuit of happiness, which I think for me is happiness, is pursuing that actively. That was way deeper than this movie really probably deserved, but I still loved it. I don't.
but don't you
Pina
guys
colada.
don't you guys think that just having a movie in a mall automatically there's a certain amount of nostalgia that it elicits for some of us, at least? I mean, because
Absolutely.
I felt the same thing as Sam. I mean, I was like kind of taken back to like, oh my God, this is so cool, So you're kind of already letting down some walls when the setting is, the whole mall situation and your own personal memories.
Yeah, it's like also it's so much different than working retail in another setting, and you will never understand it until you've worked at a mall. It's very strange. Although I've never worked in a mall that had a locker room. I still haven't found one. I know they exist. I just haven't worked in one yet.
I've never worked in a mall where the mall manager has the keys to every single store and can use them on opening night if they want to. But culturally, that might be a thing. I don't know. Before we go any further, I just want to ask Christian, what's the over-under odds of us getting a Christian Hannaford cover of Pina Colada?
Oh my God, yes.
I don't know. I mean, if the people want
I'll
it.
up the Patreon.
Yes, we want it. We want it.
This is pretty necessary, I think, sir.
It's
So
in order.
I double down on that.
I did want to talk about one of the things in the screenplay, though, and that I think is brilliant, which is the elevator sequence.
Mm-hmm.
How that is presented, that is good stuff. Like, if that was in a Conjuring movie, that would be the best gag in a Conjuring movie.
Mm-hmm.
By far. What do you guys think? Did it catch you the same way?
Absolutely. I mean, I know we've compared it a lot to The Conjuring, but did you see Conjuring 3 yet, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you like this better than that?
No, I like Conjuring 3 better.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. This one.
Nobody broke out into a fucking song during the middle of Conjuring 3.
Yes.
But that was only
never
one.
gonna play right. That is never gonna fucking play.
You don't want to see.
You could have.
Farmiga.
They could make the fucking Exorcist, but if Regan stands up and starts fucking dancing, it's gonna ruin the movie.
So, Jonathan, you
Young
haven't seen much
Frankenstein-
Indian cinema, have you?
Wait up. Young Frankenstein though is great. I mean, that's a comedy though, but
It's gold,
You know.
but it's intended that way. You want me to
so
be
is this.
scared?
This is intended that way.
Through the. Never mind.
Jonathan,
You know,
in most
it's a culture
Indian
clash.
action films, at least 3 times, the characters in mid-scene will just break against the song.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
not saying.
This
I
is
know. I
less
knew
That's
it
the thing that
was.
makes
normal.
sense in the
I
film.
knew it was. I knew it was coming.
But it's
I knew it was
less than
coming,
normal.
and I'm like, how are they going to make this work? Like make this legitimate? That you can't.
You got to give the people what they want.
The Indians.
And in
want
India,
it.
you have to have at least one song and dance number. I think it's in the rules.
No,
of
I understand that. Like you're supposed to have that, but like I don't know how you make how do you make Hereditary? Like you guys,
Oh, that would be
loves
fun.
that movie, right? And then like
Well, if it
Just
were
a head
filmed in
floating around.
India, I guarantee there would be a song
little
and dance
girl's
number
head
here
comes
somewhere.
back, starts wobbling, dancing like
When it up in
going over the
Treehouse,
Whoever did.
Like in the treehouse
There you go.
scene when the guy floats up there, they're all dancing. They're all Satanists, but they're all dancing. I mean, what the hell?
Correct. And there is a
I don't know.
dance scene. in
I'm not so
Conjuring
sure the
too.
girl who sang Pina Colada wasn't a Satanist, but that's a different thing.
Can you imagine a version of Midsummer with Sound of Music like a song? Music
Yes. But wait. So
Yes,
stop.
absolutely.
That's where I was going. That's exactly where I was going. Wicker Man does it.
Okay, I thought that it
There
was
you
going to
go.
be. I thought that Pina Colada was going to be a spell. I'm like, hold on, we're going to have a plot twist. She's a witch. The whole dance is a spell right now. And then I was
I'll
wrong.
take that. I'll take that.
I
I'll
really
take that
did.
version of the movie. I'll take that. That's a better version of this movie.
So, but I think it's a cultural thing. Like there's tropes in America cinema that don't play overseas too, the same way.
Exactly.
So
But see,
it's,
I don't know. The tone of Zombie Ready made more sense to me than this did. Like I'm supposed to be scared, but also Pina Colada.
Zombie Ready is an incredible movie.
It's fantastic. It was great. But I'm just saying,
That's
I
not a
don't
fair
get it.
comparison.
Yeah, but you brought me Zombie Ready, then you bring me this. I've got expectations.
Well, I understand the tonal conflict he's talking about. Zombie Ready was more of a comedy,
Yeah.
so it fit
It worked.
thematically better. But this was more of a straightforward horror film, and so it was kind of jarring, although expected. For me, I was like, oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. Yeah. But
Also, sorry. go
I'm
ahead.
just glad that they didn't do like some Indian films where they just sing and dance throughout the whole freaking thing. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
like I couldn't handle 2 hours of that.
Side note: went to the theater, saw Quiet Place 2, saw the trailer for that In the Heights movie. I swear to God, if any of you ever make me watch it, I will take you down and then commit suicide.
No.
That was like the worst thing ever filmed.
What
okay?
movie?
In the Heights. It's a ripoff of West Side Story. I'm
By the
just
guy
like,
who made
no,
Hamilton.
no, we have
That's
West
what it
Side
looks
Story.
like. Total rip
Yeah.
off of West Side Story.
Everyone's
Oh my God.
it's already going to win the Academy Award. I can see that, but my God, no.
No.
Yeah.
I have a quick
okay.
question for you on the side, Lauren. Now, I've not seen Psycho or Game Over yet.
Okay.
Do they abruptly break into fucking song? in those movies? You give those very high marks in a serious manner.
Yeah, Game Over is in my top 10 films of all time.
Exactly.
So
Everyone had a
Game
chance.
Over has no musical interludes whatsoever.
It's a-
Psycho has 2 musical interludes. However, one is at a party in the film. A character who's there as a musician plays a song, and we get the whole song.
All right, I'll get that.
Okay, which is kind of similar to what was done in Darr. You'll probably like it more because visually it's much more interesting when they do it. And then there's a scene where they're driving in a car, and we follow the car, and that is a little bit it's long for a song at that point, but it's still kind of moody, and it works. Psycho is a pretty amazing film, and that sounds like something that's easy to say because everyone thinks I'm talking about the Hitchcock film, but I think there's films that do it better and worse. This was trying to set up like this. The flair of the film is it takes place in a mall, and it's kind of, I mean, it's a pretty broad film to begin with. So you got this big goth dance rock track being performed at the opening of a mall at night when no one's actually there. That's regular shoppers. So it's kind of intentionally kind of absurd, I think.
But I think it was, for me, I guess why it worked and didn't tonally bother me as much. Not only because I expected it, but you have a couple of rich guys that are throwing their mall inauguration, as they call it, or the grand opening. Right. And so they hire a famous pop star to come in and sing her biggest hit. It's the whole scene is just them showing off and trying to impress everybody, which is why they've hired the new security, because they want everything to go perfect so that the opening of their new cash cow goes off without a hitch. So because of that, it fit for me. I mean, it's like, okay, it'd be like if back in the early 2000s, somebody hired Britney Spears to sing at a mall opening. I mean, back in the 80s, you had Tiffany and what's-her-face singing in malls all the time. So for me, that was like, okay, but that's why I felt like they were making a film like they thought an American would make a film.
I kind of dug not Amy Lee anyway.
I don't understand the Indian box office or how it works, but from what my research, this movie was a bomb. It did not do well in Indian theaters. So what does that say for it? I mean, if If it's an ape of an American style of filmmaking, but Americans would consider that to be a failure, but yet it's a failure in its own country. I mean, even though I liked it, what does that ultimately say about the film?
So you have to be a little bit careful here because there's a long tradition of aping American films a lot more directly than this. Like this is just in the style of back in the 70s and 60s and 50s, Indian cinema was infamous for pretty much just scene per scene refilming American films.
Well, I get that well, and of course when I speak, I speak from. Hopefully, people assume correctly that I'm speaking from a place of ignorance of the Indian culture and the Indian box office, which is why I asked that question specifically.
So, I mean, horror in India, though, it does not have the best track record until recently. Mostly because they were aping the American stuff with very few cultural ties back to their own country. That's changed now that the regions outside of the main Hindi region, where Bollywood films are made, are producing films. So your Tamil and your Telugu films are really making noise and doing really well. And that's opened up the genre because those filmmaking in those areas did not have the money. That's like your independent productions, right? So they have to do genre films to get interest, because if they go head to head with the big studios making action films, it's going to be a rough ride. But I think at the time this film came out, there was already a start of the kind of horror renaissance in India. And I think there was a lot of competition, but there was also a lot of confusion culturally. Like, is this something we're doing now? Is this okay? Game Over didn't have any musical numbers, and it didn't bother its box office. That film did incredibly well. But if Game Over had been released in 2011, I think there would have been more resistance because it didn't have it didn't meet the mold, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Can I guess they were. Really
go ahead.
Can I ask a really weird question? I don't know why, but in the movie, when we have the whole pina colada thing, which seems to be the kind of point of contention about whether it should really be there or not, or whatever. I mean, but fun times. But why? I had a moment where I just felt completely confused. I thought, what has happened? And I cannot remember the character's name because I don't have my notes right here, but he's taking a drink. And the party's happening, and the pina colada song, and the whole thing. And he puts the cup down on the bar, and everyone is gone. Did I miss something?
No.
Because it was moments like that where I thought, wait, I was really paying attention. What am I missing? Like, huh? And I think those were the little disjointed moments. There were a couple like that where I thought one was with the memory situation that I felt kind of just disjointed some moments within it, and disrupted the enjoyment for me. It disrupted my enjoyment.
I felt that was the ghosts that were specifically messing with that one character, so nobody else could see what they were seeing because the ghosts were targeting them.
Thinking, okay, cool.
Because that happened multiple times with different characters where they were just kind of like seeing stuff that only the ghosts wanted them to see.
Yeah.
And that's like, and ultimately that's the elevator gag in its totality, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone saw the same thing, so different people. Well, one person in particular wasn't affected, and you'd think that would have been a good thing, but I guess it wasn't for her. So let's go around the table, starting with Mike. We'll go clockwise. We'll end with Dan. On a scale, let's do this in the way I do it. Schoolhouse grades, A through F. Where would you place this?
Well, just on its own merits, I would have to give it a B. I really did overall enjoy the film. It did have its problems. It could have been, a few changes here or there, and it could have been an A. But it did. I have to take off a letter grade just because of some of the things that I felt could have been changed for the better.
Cool. Sam?
I'm going to give it a B+. I mean, scale of 1 to 100, it would be solid 88 or 89. if we're going that route. And, you know, I thought it was really fun. And it was nice to just kind of, I hate to say it's formulaic, but it is. I just really enjoyed how it was executed. And it was, you know, Pina Colada's a fucking banger. And I thought it was just a fun movie overall. If you give me a setting like a mall, I'm there. I'm always down for a movie that takes place in a mall, specifically horror.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey. And considering how much I hate most things, this is high praise.
Christian, I want your Schoolhouse grade, but I also want you to rank it as if it were a Puppet Master film.
What the hell does that mean?
Well, you have your ranking of Puppet Master film, so I want you to tell me exactly what would be the parallel Puppet Master film.
Oh, okay. Like the equivalent to it.
Yeah. Clearly, you probably don't see it as like Puppet Master 2, but it's not Axis, you know.
I would call it about a Puppet Master 4 or 5 because those are pretty even, which is good to me. I mean, that's kind of where the buck stops. You know what I mean? So I'd give it a B, just a solid, a straight B, not plus, not minus, just a regular B. You know what I mean? That's what I'd give it. In
Jay.
context,
Master 4
anyway.
feel.
Jay, where does this film sit for you?
I'll go Puppet Master 4. I think I'm gonna have to go.
That's the new rating system.
Yeah.
Puppet Master.
I'm gonna go C+, and only because the CGI really bothered me. I'll be honest. I'm really a stickler for that stuff, and but I did enjoy the film. It really did pick up at the end for me, and I'm glad because I was kind of worried I was going to be a Jonathan over here, just poo-pooing all over it. But,
I didn't poo-poo all over it. I said the score was great.
The score was great.
Okay, Jonathan, who failed phys ed somehow. How did you? What is your Schoolhouse grade on this?
It's D+.
Oh, there's a plus.
That's
there,
passing.
though.
That's passing.
Passing. Like, it's a watchable movie. I just don't understand. Like,
You let it graduate.
Yeah, like, to get it away from me. Like,
Wow, he's that
That's the
teacher.
most American thing I've ever heard.
Yes.
Passed you to get away from me. That's the American school system.
Yep. No, but I won't watch it again, but like I've seen way worse.
You've seen like
We've all seen
some of the later Puppet
Stick that
Master
quote
films.
on the front of the DVD cover.
I watched this. I watched Killer High. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh. Stone.
I'm gonna put on my pom poms here and say A minus. The best thing I can say about this movie is that I don't have any nostalgia for malls. I can't really apologize for that or acknowledge that in any way or explain that, except I just was never a fan of malls. I mean, I hated Mallrats the very first time I saw it, and I didn't come around on it until years later. I was always Ethan Suplee looking at the magic window and never seen the fucking sailboat when it came to Mallrats, okay? That's why I always empathize with him. The thing I can say about Darr at the Mall is that I would love to visit that mall.
Hell yeah.
That is my final
Yes.
assessment.
Even
That
if
is
it
my
looks like
final
a house of
assessment
comedy
of
mall.
Darr at the Mall. Yeah.
Susan.
I 100% agree with Sam. I give it a B+. I would definitely rewatch it. It had its bad stuff, but I love a good like B movie badness injected into something, so I'm totally okay with it. And I definitely give it a solid B+.
Cool. Dan.
Well, I give it a very enthusiastic Puppet Master 3 Toulon's Revenge.
Nice.
And
That's some high praise in my neck of the woods. That's
There
some
you go.
serious high praise.
and it hits all the right emotional notes throughout, entertaining as hell. Yeah, a little familiar, but that's not always a bad thing. I give it an A- or a Puppet
Wow.
Master 3.
You're too nice. You're too nice.
Oh,
Dan.
I loved it. I want to watch this one again. I really did.
You can watch it
Oh.
for me. How about that?
I do want to say, Lauren, you were going to have to find another Indian film called Pizza 3D.
Right?
I've heard of it. So on Darr, I might. It's kind of weird that people are going to go higher than me because I brought the movie to you guys, but I give it a solid B. and there's nothing to be ashamed of there. I reserve like A's always have to be fresh and new and innovative and kind of mind blowing to me. Even to be an A minus, you have to really be like aiming for the outfield at least, right? And this doesn't. This wants to get on base, and I'm making a sports analogy. What the fuck is wrong with me? But
Are you?
yeah, I'll tell you. But it's really solid in what it does, and if it's a little leisurely about doing it, well, you know, I'm the guy who like wishes that The Witch was an hour longer. So
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with it being leisurely. I didn't talk about the kids at all. I love the brat kids misbehaving and playing their little ridiculous games with each other. I thought it was awesome. And I don't usually like that stuff, but there was something strangely mean-spirited about all of it that I just loved.
Right.
Pina Colada was absurd in exactly the way I wanted it to be absurd. When you get to the musical numbers. So, I mean, to me, a B is a really good grade. It's higher than I usually got in school, but that's for damn sure. So that's where I'd put it. Now, is it an A plus like Game Over? To Jonathan's point. Fuck no. If I'm going to use that as the ballpark, it's going to push this down to a C. But you can't do that because a Game Over is a rare film. That's if you get to see 5 films in your life that really are that creative, well-made, perfectly acted, wonderful puzzles for rewatches. I mean, that movie is just everything I want in cinema. So I can't use that as like a benchmark. That's off in its own category. So before we go, what I would like, and I think everyone would like, without giving out any spoilers, Mike, can you give a synopsis of this film?
Oh man, it's not going to be as easy as Dracula eating a cheeseburger. A bad first day for a mall security guard. I mean, but that doesn't really do it justice. I mean, I did like the fact that greedy people are bad and lack spirituality, and therefore rob themselves of humanity. That's kind of a summation of the theme. But as far as going through it's so choppy as far as how it presents its information. It doesn't really give me a good angle for a flow on this one. So I'll have to go with that.
All right. Sorry to disappoint. We'll hit you for the next one. Any final words from anyone else?
Yeah, I have something. Are we all not going to talk about Lauren's mullet? Do we all just agree? Like, we're not going to say anything about that?
See you later.
If that ends up anywhere else, I get pissed.
That was a